If the BYU Cougars want to beat the Colorado Buffaloes Saturday night, there is one key thing that Jay Hill's defense needs to replicate from their Alamo Bowl win in this game.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer of the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 14-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider, your host here on this podcast, and as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. All right, coming up on today's show, we're talking about what BYU's defense, one key thing I observed from the Alamo Bowl game that they absolutely need to replicate Saturday night against Colorado to make it a 2-0 record in the past 12 months against the Buffs. We'll get into that. Then we're going to talk about two commitments, Will Openshaw and Devon Ekka. What do they offer to BYU basketball and BYU football, respectively? We'll get into that. And we'll finish up today's show with Aussie. Oi, oi, oi. Yes, Sam Vanderhar, BYU star punter. He joined me after practice yesterday to talk about what has led him to being so much better and consistent this season. Well, he'll explain in an exclusive one-on-one chat here on today's show, and it's all brought to you today by our friends over at FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com. Sign up today if you're new customers. Your first $5 bet, if it wins, get $300 in bonus bets used across the app and on FanDuel.com. Get started today with our friends over at FanDuel. All right. So I was at the Alamo Bowl last December, as many of you might recall if you're an everydayer, and I watched BYU absolutely rough up the Colorado Buffaloes. Now, I talked yesterday on the podcast how I believe BYU's run game offensively is going to be, I think, the biggest thing they can do to win this football game, offensively at least, that is. On the defensive side of the football, there is one key thing that I watched with my very own eyes down in the Alamo Dome, and I'm sure those of you who made the trek to San Antonio will have observed this as well. But BYU played absolute head games with Shedeur Sanders and the entire Colorado Buffaloes offensive line in that win over the Buffs. What they were doing is they were running all kinds of different schemes. We're talking simulated pressures, all-out blitzes. They would walk up to the line and look like they were going to blitz and then back off into a drop 8 scheme. They would disguise their coverages. We heard Frank Reich, the interim head coach at Stanford earlier this season, say he's absolutely floored about how well BYU's defense has been able to disguise their coverages, this season. And that extends back all the way to the Alamo Bowl, if not before that. Because remember, there's a famous clip of Shedeur Sanders sitting on the sidelines there in the Alamo Dome, and he's mic'd up, and he's looking at a tablet trying to figure out what BYU is doing defensively, and essentially saying, I can't figure it out. They've got this. This makes no sense to me. The head games that Jay Hill's defense plays with opposing quarterbacks is absolutely elite. It's insane to consider how well BYU does on that side of the football, and that's a credit to the BYU players. Guys like Isaiah Glasgow, Jack Kelly, Celia Sarah at linebacker, Keanu Tanavasa up front, John Talmoya-Peau on the back end, Evan Johnson, Maury Bamba, Trey Alexander, Tanner Wall, Raider Dumont. Everybody involved in this BYU defense right now, they're smart young men, and they absolutely are getting it done in terms of just screwing with opposing quarterbacks' heads when it comes to coverages and the like. What I observed down in the Alamo Dome was Cash Cleveland, who was the starting center for Colorado this past season. So going back to last year, he's now currently at Texas Tech, if I recall correctly. He hit the transfer portal and went to Tech. But I vividly remember sitting there in the press box in the Alamo Dome, and we're talking like third quarter-ish, if I recall correctly. He was so frustrated with the head games being played with him and his teammates that he just kind of threw his arms up in disgust. Oh, he couldn't even keep up with it. And it kind of paralleled, as we mentioned, what Shedeur Sanders was saying on the sidelines, and he just couldn't figure out BYU's coverages. That is absolutely what BYU needs to replicate in this game against Colorado on Saturday night. Now, some of the faces are new, obviously. No Shedeur Sanders, no Cash Cleveland for Colorado. And instead, they got guys like Caden Salter. And as I understand it, Colorado has what they believe is a better offensive line this year because it was to be kind, Swiss cheese last year because BYU just knifing through it. And it was holy. You can get the Swiss cheese reference. But the bigger thing is, even if this offensive line is better, I don't think it's elite. And in fact, I think BYU is probably just already thinking, what are we going to do this time to torture them? Jordan Seaton, who's their star left tackle, he's a fantastic football player. But one guy does not make an offensive line. You need to have 5 guys who work in sync, obviously understand things on a deeper level. And I think BYU's defensive line, the games they'll play, the twists, the stunts, the blitzes they'll bring, and bringing it from literally everywhere, BYU is going to confuse Colorado once again, and Caden Salter better be ready to run because we saw this past week. I don't remember who the left tackle is from Green Bay. It's a clip that's going to live on in infamy for years. He gets beat by Myles Garrett on an inside move, and you literally hear him on film yell, "Jordan, run!" Speaking to Jordan Love. That is exactly what I hope BYU does to Caden Salter Saturday night. And heck, even if it isn't Caden Salter, Jordan Staub, Julian Lewis, whoever's at quarterback for Colorado, you better hope that Jordan Seaton and his teammates are forced to just scream at him, "Run." That is what BYU needs to do defensively, and I believe they absolutely have the horses to do it even better this year than they did a season ago. It's no slight to BYU's defensive linemen from last year. I loved what John Nelson, Blake Mangelson, Isaiah Banya, and Tyler Batty brought, but I'm telling you, Keanu Tanavasa, John Talmoya-Peau, Vil Puha, who else am I thinking of? Bodie Schoonover, Hunter Clegg, on down the list of the defensive linemen BYU has on this team. I think they're more athletic. I think they're more versatile. And I think the ability to intermix with BYU's linebacking core, because tell you, Jack Kelly, Isaiah Glasgow, and Ciala Serra ain't taking a backseat to anybody in this league. I think they're going to absolutely just mess with the head of Caden Salter, and he's not going to be understanding where things are coming from, why they're happening, and heck, we may even get another clip from him on the sidelines, much like his predecessor in Shedeur Sanders saying, "I don't understand." That is what BYU needs to do. They need to mess with this Colorado offense. I don't believe Colorado is a world beater. I don't think that they're a team that is capable of winning a Big 12 title this season. But in my opinion, are they the most talented team on paper that BYU has faced this season? Absolutely. I've got no problem saying that. I believe that East Carolina is the better team. I hope I hope you can get the distinction there. I think East Carolina is a better team overall right now than Colorado, but on paper, star ratings, or however you want to quantify it, Colorado's the best team talent-wise the Cougars have faced. But much like they did almost 12 months ago, now it's 10 months, I guess, roughly, going back to the Alamo Bowl game, I fully expect Jay Hill just to play games with Pat Shurmur, their offensive coordinator, speaking of Colorado. And if they can do it, mess with the head of Caden Salter, and heck, make whoever's the center now for Colorado throw their arms up in disgust because they just can't handle it anymore. It was a masterclass a season ago in the Alamo Bowl game, and I fully expect BYU to replicate it Saturday night at Folsom Field. All right, coming up next, we're going to flip over and talk about 2 commitments, one for BYU football, one for BYU basketball that came in yesterday, both of which are local prospects, but the fact is, when you can find guys in your backyard who have this type of talent, it's an absolute home run to add them to your rosters. We'll get into that next right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Now, most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether that's your 401k, properties, investments, and a whole litany of other things out there. And when you don't have that full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That is why Monarch Money is here. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. You're putting off your organizing your finances. Monarch is for you. They do the heavy lifting for you. Link your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without even touching a spreadsheet. That's the best part about this. The best part is you can maximize your investments, increase your savings rate, easily review finances with your partner and financial advisors, and also keep a clear view of your financial health week to week, long term, even day by day, no matter how you want to go about it. Do not let this financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off at monarchmoney.com using the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. on college. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. Now, Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. They deliver confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anybody else as of August 2025. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail in their vehicles, from metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery and literally anything in between. You make everyday drives feel like anything but, with smooth handling and intuitive controls, and with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence in almost any season as well. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. It's all courtesy of your friends over at Mazda, where they like to say, move and be moved. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of your guys' insight, your input, and quite frankly, your support of the podcast. We are having an absolutely marvelous 2025. It's only we're at the tail end of September almost, but we are off and rolling, and it's been a really fun season to date. So continue to be with us. Be an everydayer right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, because the motto around the network is your team every day. And appreciate all your patronage, whether you watch it via YouTube or listening to it wherever you get your podcasts. Y'all are the absolute best. BYU basketball and BYU football got commitments yesterday, and I want to start off on the football front, and that brings us to the topic of Devon Ekka. Now, Devaughn is a running back prospect at Lehigh High School, which is a stone's throw away from where I live in Saratoga Springs, and I've had an opportunity to watch Devaughn play at the high school level for multiple years now. I've called games for KSL Game Rewind. I've been there just as a media member watching him on the sidelines. And the one thing I can say about Devon Ekka is he is as electric a running back prospect as I can remember in recent memory coming out of the Utah high school ranks. Now, there have been some pretty good running backs in its history. I will never forget a guy that I was the same age as in Harvey Unga. Now, Harvey, obviously, is now as the running backs coach, is looking at guys like Devon Ekka as the future for BYU at the running back position. And the best part about a kid like Devon Ekka is his balance. Speed, size, all that different stuff goes into it. But what I have observed watching Devon Ekka play football is he has balance that belies a lot of high school football players. And the biggest thing I can say to illustrate that point is if you watch a football player, a lot of guys have to go laterally. And the biggest question when you go laterally, whether it's a cut, a jump cut, or just simply sidestepping somebody, is do you keep your speed? And more importantly, do you stay on balance? Because let's say you make that jump cut and somebody blasts you from the other side. Are you going to just topple over like a house of cards? Or are you able to absorb that hit, bounce off of it, and keep going? Devon Ekka has that lateral ability that has balance with it. It's pretty incredible to watch him do his thing. He's got solid speed. I don't necessarily know what he proclaims to run in the 40-yard dash. It's super fast at the high school level. I'll just say that. I have watched him outrun many a defensive back in my time observing him, watching him on tape, etc. And he's got decent size as well. I look at him and I look at it and say, you know what? I think BYU's betting low and potentially getting a high reward out of this, because a guy like Devaughn, he's not a very highly rated prospect if you go by 24/7 Sports. His rating is an 84. So that's middle tier 3-star status. But I've said it once, I'll say it again. Kalani Sitake and his staff have made a career of bringing in these 2- and 3-star talents. But as I often say, finding a way to get 4- and 5-star production out of them. I look at a guy like Devon Ekka as, let's say he's a Squally Canada, or he's a Tyler Algier, or a Sione Moa, or heck, even an LJ Martin. When LJ showed up to BYU, he had a bunch of accolades, a 4-star prospect, former Stanford commit, all those different things. But he was a skinny running back who needed to add bulk to his frame. I see the very same thing with a guy like Devon Ekka, but I think given time, resources, just honing his development and working on his own game, I'm telling you, Devon Ekka has the capability of being a starting running back for BYU. And I love, like I said, the ability to bounce off hits, take those hits, and just keep moving forward. That's a really, really nice skill to have if you're a high school running back. So I think this is a really, really great pickup for the BYU football program. And once again, he may not jump off the page to you looking at BYU's recruiting class, the 2026 class that he's a member of, but it's ranked 23rd in the country right now, according to 24/7 Sports. I have long believed that BYU truly wants to contend for Big 12 titles, college football playoff berths. They have to be a top 25 ranking recruiting class every single year. Now, that's much easier said than done because it goes back only like 1 or 2 seasons where BYU was ranked in the 50s and the 60s. So they can fall back pretty quickly, but right now they're capitalizing on an 11-2 campaign. They brought in a lot of top-tier talent. The guys like Ryder Lyons out there, Bot Mulatalo, Brock Harris, they're the headliners of this class. But just as important as those guys are, because they bring the flash, the sizzle, the whatever you want in terms of the eyeballs to the recruiting class, you need talents like Devon Ekka that come in and are a key part, even though they may not, like I said, have that flashbang ability of some of the other top-tier prospects in this class. I love Devon Ekka's game, and I think he's going to be a tailor-made fit for BYU's offense. And it's cool that he's just right up the road in Lehigh, playing now, coming just a little bit south to play in Provo, Utah. Now, BYU basketball also got a commitment last night, and that's Will Openshaw. Now, he is a prospect who's quite literally just up the street from BYU, playing at Timpview High School. He's a 6'10" forward prospect. The funny thing about this is you try and go and find his recruiting rankings, they don't exist. Yeah, it's kind of funny about that. 24/7 Sports and On3 and the others, I'm sure will have an update very quickly. But he is teammates with Dean Ruckert, who is a top-tier prospect, a top 100 prospect that committed to BYU not that long ago. And the one thing I can say about Will Openshaw, and Robbie McCombs noted this, is he is a mission-first kid. So he's actually going to go out, serve 2 years, and he's expected to return in time for the 2028-2029 season. But what I have observed from afar, I've actually never had the chance to see Will Openshaw with my own eyes, so take that as for what it's worth. Much like I've watched Devon Ekka with my own eyes, I don't have an in-person scouting report of Will Openshaw, but I've seen film and I've talked to people about him, and they'd say he's a rangy, long forward who's got stretch four capability. At 6'10", yeah, he's probably going to play the 4 or 5 spot in Kevin Young's offense and just program overall. But I think it all kind of depends on how his frame develops, because he's a long, skinny athlete right now, and that's not a bad thing at this point in his basketball career. More and more, basketball is becoming a positionless game, and you need to be able to guard positions, 2 or 3 different positions, if not 4 or 5 of them, to be an effective player. I think Will Openshaw's range, his ability to step out to the perimeter and shoot a shot, but also, from what I have observed, he's unafraid to go into the paint and also play down low. That versatility, I think, is why a guy like Kevin Young was intrigued and ultimately took his commitment. Kevin Young is not going to recruit anybody just because, oh, they're at Timpview High School or they're a local. No, he is in the business of finding the best talent he possibly can find. If you heard his podcast with John Rothstein of CBS Sports, I think it came out yesterday. This is the Wednesday podcast. I think it came out on Tuesday. He talked about the fact that he wants the best of the best. And he talked about guys like Kennard Davis, and he called him a grown man. Great. He can be a grown man. You love guys like that, and BYU will always bolster their lineup with transfer portal additions, and we're talking top-rated transfer portal guys. But just as they're going to bring in the A.J. DeBonces of the world, they're also going to need guys like Will Openshaw, who, while he may not be an out-and-out star for BYU, I'm not saying he couldn't be that, but even if he is a glue guy who comes in and plays just a multitude of different positions, contributes at a high level, you need we call them program guys in radio, the guys I work with. Guys like that are the bedrock of what you build your program around. I love what Will Openshaw offers. While Dean Ruckert may have more star potential, actual NBA potential in him, I think a guy like Will Openshaw, he brings a lot of versatility in his own right, and he's going to bolster this BYU basketball lineup because he's a local kid. He's got pride, obviously, playing in front of his family and his friends and playing for a university that's quite literally, you could probably hit a driver. Maybe not, it's based a little further than that, but it's a mile between Timpview's campus and BYU's basketball facility. He knows the lay of the land, and he's going to want to put on for BYU and make sure that he makes an impression. And I think that this is a nice pickup for Kevin Young to bring in. And if Chris Burgess is still around at that time when he returns for his mission, heck, if Kevin Young's still around, because there's always those rumors out there, he addressed that with John Rothstein as well. He said, we explored things in the offseason, but decided we want to be here in Provo. And we hope to be here for a long time, but you can never rule out what the future holds. That guy's got all kinds of people talking about him, and probably to him often enough. But I think the bigger point to be made here is a guy like Will Openshaw. He's going to be part of the fabric of what makes BYU basketball stand out from the rest. Yes, as I mentioned, as long as Kevin Young is in Provo, there's going to be top-tier talent coming to play. He wants to make it an NBA factory. And I'm sure a guy like Will Openshaw harbors ambitions of playing in the NBA. Well, come to a program that wants to develop you into that. And while he may not right now look like an NBA prospect, who's to say 3 and 4 years down the line that doesn't blossom into that? He's filled out his frame. He becomes a two-way force at stretch 4 and able to defend the perimeter. That's just as good as anything you could hope for. So I love the commitment of Will Openshaw. And before that, I love what Devon Ekka brings. And I think that both of them they're homegrown talents, and BYU absolutely needs to capitalize on those as often as they possibly can. But also understand that there's going to be opportunities for them to put on for their university and vice versa for the university to help them achieve their goals along the way. All right, coming up next, we'll finish up today's show with a one-on-one chat. I love talking with Sam Vanderhar. He was a guest on this podcast shortly after he committed to BYU 2 or 3 years ago. I don't remember when it was. I have really enjoyed getting to know him in the ensuing years. Had a great chat with him yesterday. He is absolutely standing out early this season, and what's led to it, quite frankly, that's what I wanted to ask him about. And we'll get to that next right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Now, FanDuel is here for you guys with the NFL season ongoing. They're making sure that you're ready for it with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers, you can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Whether you like using FanDuel for however you want to bet, whether it's play or props, building a same-game parlay, heck, maybe even the NFL is not what you're into. You want to bet on NBA futures odds, they've got every option for you guys under the sun. And it makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup alongside that. It's quick, it's easy, it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays when you're watching football. So you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. Once again, it's all courtesy of your friends over at FanDuel. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. I say that often enough here on this podcast, but I truly mean it. Thank you for making it a part of your day. And another thing you can do to make it a better part of your day is be a part of the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. You can get the inside intel that you crave coming to your phone in the form of a text message, pass along breaking news tidbits, insider tidbits that you won't find anywhere else, and it comes right to your phone in the form of a text message. You can fire back with thoughts of your own, have one-on-one conversations with myself, support the show, but also it's just $5 a month to be a part of the group. And the kicker, I should add, is you get a 14-day free trial before you're charged a single penny. So join us today on the Locked On Cougars Insider Group and get the inside intel that you, I know, want. All right, before we go on today's show, Sam Vanderhar has emerged as a force for BYU. Now, I mentioned earlier this week on the podcast that Will Farron probably is going to go down as one of the greats, if not the all-time GOAT at kicker for BYU. We're watching a living legend in doing his work. Well, his compatriot in terms of kicking footballs is Sam Vanderhar, a native of Melbourne, Australia. Comes to BYU by way of a transfer from Pitt, speaking of the Pitt Panthers. And all he's done is he had a position battle early last season. And remember, the Wyoming game is when he secured the #1 job. And he had a solid season last year for the BYU football program. But much like great punters and kickers do, he went to work in the offseason to really hone his craft, refine his game, and more importantly, make sure he was the best version of himself he possibly could be. So I wanted to ask him what's led him to get 2 Ray Guy Award. They call them the Great Eights. They're the like weekly award nominees, or I guess their watch list, whatever you want to call it. Well, he's gotten 2 of them in the past 3 weeks for his performance on the field. I wanted to talk to him about that. Talk to him, as I mentioned, about what he's done to improve his game and also what the BYU experience has been like for him. So here you go, an exclusive chat with BYU punter Sam Vanderhar.
You are like a weekly award nominee all of a sudden. How validating is that for all the work you've put in?
Yeah, no, it's been great. I guess as a whole team, we're off to a really good start. And I think the way that the punting's gone is kind of indicative of how our team has been in terms of the buy-in, and like everyone's sort of trying hard. And as I said, the punting has been really good. But I don't think I could be sort of doing what I'm doing without the guys in the shield, all the boys in protection. And I guess I'm very fortunate to have, guys like Jack Kelly and Glasgow and those sort of boys on my punt team, which obviously is a game changer as well. So, yeah, it's been good.
What's it like? Because we heard Kelly Papinga say that you've really worked on your hang time, which has been a big game changer. How do you go about working on something like that?
Yeah, I think I just, I would like to think I'm a pretty humble person by nature, but I guess I just really humbled myself over the summer and just said, you know what, like, let's take the ego out of it and just sort of see where my weaknesses really lie. And I think that I sort of decided that I was going to maybe try and lose a little bit of weight. So I lost about 7 to 8 pounds, which I personally think has kind of made a difference in me being able to really get up and through the ball a bit more. And so just doing that, and then also just a lot of film review and, just even messaging different boys that are over here, different Aussie guys, and sort of picking their brains on sort of what they do well and just incorporating it into my game. And I think that it's at least initially paying off a little bit, so that's good.
Talking about messaging guys like they're Aussies, like is there a little network here of you guys that have come over? Yeah,
I think there's some crazy stat. I think like over 60% of starting punters in the FBS are Australian, which is really cool. Okay. So a lot of the guys, even a lot of them I haven't really met, but they came through Pro Kick, which is obviously the program I came through, and so there's always that initial like bond, I guess, and everyone is so easy to talk to, and we all want each other to do well, so it's a pretty cool little family we have, Pro Kick family, I guess.
I didn't know that there was that network yet.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of a guy like Marcus McKenzie, we saw the play that he made the other night off of one of your punts, obviously downing it later on, also on one of your punts. What's a relationship like that? How do you develop that type of chemistry?
Yeah, Marcus is a stud. I mean, all those boys are. It's just like little tendencies, like I think Marcus understands different tendencies I have in punt, in terms of location and depending on where we are in the field, where I like to put it. And so he's just so good at reading, I guess, my hang time in correlation to where the returner is, and then obviously the distance as well. And so, and he's just so aggressive. A lot of people sort of look at Marcus as this really speedy, quick gunner, but he's violent. And so I think that, if someone doesn't have a fair catch and he's sort of nearby, it's kind of like a good luck type thing, where he's just, as I said, he's so aggressive. And I went up to him after that punt. I said, dude, that was all you. He made me look good. Yeah. So, yeah, shout out Marcus. Yeah, I love that guy.
Were you surprised he was able to draw that ball loose? Because you talk about his violence, but you're not surprised by him doing that?
Not at all. No, in the moment when it happened, of course, it's always like, oh, wow, the ball's out. Yeah. But as he made, I saw the ball spinning a certain way when I hit it, and I was like, he shouldn't try and catch that. I don't think our returners would try and catch that. And so when he went for it, I was like, beautiful, we're going to have a chance. And then as soon as it hit him and I saw Marcus hit him, I'm like, that ball's going to come out. And I didn't really know what was going on, if it was like a touchdown or if it was, I was like, I don't understand these old football rules, but I was like, I know that it's going to be a good result for our team. So.
Now, looking at this game against Colorado, you're going to be at elevation once again. How much difference really is there elevation-wise in terms of your ability to hang it up there?
Not much, really, to be honest. I think that if you hit a good ball, you hit a good ball.
Okay.
It probably does save you a little bit, or maybe those ones you don't hit as well, you might get an extra 1 or 2 yards potentially. But I don't personally really notice that much of a difference. I think that if you start treating it like, oh, I can get more if I do this or I do that, I think it changes the way you punt a little bit. So my job doesn't really change in terms of the way I punt the football. If there's a little bit of wind, I might try and drive it a little bit, but in terms of my mechanics and the way that my goal's heading into the game, it's very much the same. And if it hangs up more, it hangs up more. So.
How have you approached the mental side of it? Because we've heard from guys like Will Farron, who's like, he's unflappable, it feels like, in so many different ways. How do you approach it mentally? Yeah,
it's been cool watching Will go about his mental stuff, because I think I just try and take parts from him, and even Garrison being a veteran guy as well, and kind of what they do. And I say to the guys all the time, I actually find games a whole lot easier than practice, just because it's 1 of 1. In practice, we do 6, 7, 8 punts in a period. And so it's just really just telling myself that it's okay. It doesn't matter. And that for me works, because it really just makes it more fun and allows me to just go out and allow my muscle memory to take over. And I've said this multiple times as well, that the less that I can really think that it's a big deal or that punt needs to be good, the better I typically do. And so it's just reminding myself that it's okay, and that just be confident, really. Yeah.
What's the overall experience been like for you as a punter coming over from Australia? You spent time at Pitt, now at BYU. What's the experience been like?
It's been awesome, yeah. I think that I'll, when my career's all done and dusted, I'll reflect on it a bit more and sort of, I am obviously eternally grateful. And it's been a journey. I think that I left Pitt and I was in a little bit of rubbles there, I would say, where I maybe had a little bit of doubt about whether I was able to go out and perform. I guess thought I had the ability, but I guess, you go out and you have a year that maybe you're not as proud of. And Yeah, it was good to come here and sort of have a decent year last year to kind of build into this year, and now I feel like I'm sort of at a point where I can just keep elevating, and yeah, it's nice that the hard work, pays off.
What's it been like? I know you're married and everything. Does it feel like home in a way that you found a place in Provo?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love it here. All you guys, the media guys, the coaches, the players. It's a really special place here. It's just a big family. And yeah, I like that, we obviously really care about football, and we really do our due diligence to be the best team we can be. But I think the family and the faith part, we always say family, faith, football, it sort of makes the game easier. And I think that everyone having a little bit of perspective makes us play a little bit better. And so I think that's probably our biggest strength. I think that's our competitive advantage as a team, is that we care about things a little bit more than just football, which allows us to go out and play loose.
A big thank you to Sam Vanderhar for taking the time to join us here on Locked On Cougars. Great story. This guy was looking for a home. Kelly Poppinga embraced him, and in turn, he's embraced BYU as well. And I love this story because as you heard him talk about, he's got a nice network of guys who have come over from Australia with him via that Pro Kick Australia. And all he's done is become, I think, a really, really solid, if not a star, for BYU on special teams. And by the way, that third phase of the game, it's been a key part of BYU's success the past 2 years in particular. But it's a great story in and of itself, how well that unit is developed under Kelly Poppinga. But it's also a credit to guys like Sam Vanderhar for putting in the time to get better. So congratulations to Sam on his awards he's been put up for recently. And here's to many, many more to our favorite Aussie as a member of the BYU football program. All right, that is going to do it for today's edition of the show. And as always, thank you for your support of the podcast. Please continue to subscribe, rate, and review, share it with your family and friends. And we'll tease ahead to tomorrow. It's a crossover edition. Locked On Buffs host Kevin Borba joins me. We talk about this game top to bottom, what to expect from BYU and Colorado from both a BYU and a Colorado perspective. We'll have that for you guys on tomorrow's edition of Locked On Cougars.